Medicine physician at Oakville Hospital and lead for social prescribing at CCHOHT. So today is our, I think it's our third or fourth webinar actually, as part of our lifestyle medicine and social prescribing series. This is our first webinar that's actually accredited for CME credits. So welcome everyone. Today, we'll be talking about the gut microbiome and all the key roles it plays in our overall health, and ways that we can incorporate this science into our everyday practice. In addition to family medicine training at McMaster, I completed a lifestyle and integrative medicine fellowship at the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine at University of Arizona. I've also received some advanced gut microbiome training from Dr. Will Balcevitz, who is a gastroenterologist and leading expert in the field. So I wanted to thank you all for joining and want to also thank CCHOHT, who is supporting social prescribing and lifestyle medicine work, and the Halton Physician Association, who has supported this CME accreditation process for this webinar series. Before we begin into our topic, we have Dr. Chris Martiniuk here, who's going to share a few updates with us. Dr. Martiniuk, as you know, is a family physician in the Halton region, and she's also the chair for Halton Physician Association and our primary care network lead at the OHT. So I'm going to hand it over to her, and then we'll get started with our topic. Welcome, Chris.
Turn my mic back on. Thanks, Nivi. Brief update in terms of primary care. It's a really exciting time in primary care in Ontario. Sometimes it may not feel that way, but in fact, the government's recognized across the country how important primary care is as the foundation of our healthcare system. And as a result, there's been investments, there's ongoing investments, and there's a lot of work locally. We've just officially launched and put on the Connected Care Halton website, the Primary Healthcare Action Plan. This is an overview. We've got a summary slide that would be on the website that goes into some more detail. But essentially right now, the core goal is Ontario Health is working towards ensuring every person has access to a primary care provider. And this is Jane Philpott's work that many people have heard about. So I won't go through this full slide, but essentially we have a plan for the Halton area that this summarizes. And in addition, the Halton Physician Association will be continuing to work alongside the Developing Primary Care Network. You'll hear more about the Developing Primary Care Network soon. We have Shannon Bettridge that's joined the OHT team to support the development of that PCN. And at the same time, the HPA is going to have important work supporting CME events. We're able to accredit the CME events. Some of them will be with the OHT and working in conjunction. Some of them will be HPA events like our clinic day that will be more independently led. So you'll hear more about those two things as we also will be electing people to the OHT table, both from the HPA and from the PCN. So a lot more to come. And many people are aware that there was a proposal for expanding primary care teams, and that was just submitted on Friday with the very good work of our OHT team, Sarah, Mateen, and Zoe. And we will hear about that in the spring. So hopefully we'll have the opportunity to have funding for expanded teams. So I will hand things back over to Nivi. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Chris. All right. So before I get started, I just want to declare some conflicts of interest. This program does receive financial support from CCHOHT in the form of educational grant, and we have received in-kind support from Halton Physician Association in the form of scientific committee and logistical support. Just for myself, I do have the social prescribing lead at CCHOHT, so I do receive some funding from CCHOHT as well. So today our topic again is the gut microbiome and its role in overall health and incorporating it into our practice. So by the end of this session, you'll be able to describe what the gut microbiome is and its composition, understand its role in regulating immune function, digestive health, brain and mental health, metabolism and hormone balance and weight balance as well. And also recognizing what the clinical implications of dysbiosis is, reviewing evidence-based interventions to support a healthy microbiome, and identifying practical ways to integrate microbiome-focused care into our practice routinely. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box and we can go through them in the end, or you'll have a chance to ask questions as well at the end. So let's begin by describing what the gut microbiome actually is. So it's a community of around 39 trillion microbes that live in our digestive tract, mainly in our large intestine. These include bacteria, fungi, viruses, archaea, as well as parasites. Each person's microbiome is unique. It's like a fingerprint, and it's shaped by whether someone's born through vaginal delivery or C-section, their genetics, their environment, their diet, stress. All of this factors into our microbiome. So it's really unique, the composition of microbes that we all have. These microbes co-evolved with us, and they're performing functions that we cannot perform on our own. And there's two states we think about with the microbiome. So there's a state called eubiosis, which is a state of healthy, balanced microbiome where beneficial microbes exist in harmony with our body, and they actually support our overall health. On the other hand, there's dysbiosis, which is a state where there are more pathogenic microbes, an imbalanced microbiome, and a loss of diversity in microbes that we possess. We'll talk a little bit more about dysbiosis a little later. So Hippocrates had once said, all disease begins in the gut. And evidence keeps pointing towards this statement as we have more research in this field. We're also seeing high rates of metabolic syndrome, autoimmune disease, chronic digestive issues, mood disorders, persistent fatigue. I'm sure you're all seeing that with patients in primary care. And increasingly, we're discovering that the microbiome is not just its own topic, it's actually central to many organ systems, and it plays a role in all these symptoms and disease states. So let's get into the microbiome and its function. The gut microbiome is almost central and acts like a command center for digestion, immune health, hormones, metabolism and weight regulation, as well as brain and mental health. So the first one is digestion. Our microbes in our gut help us digest our food. They help us produce vitamins like vitamin K and helps us absorb nutrients. Particularly worth noting is that they help us digest fibers and complex carbohydrates that we can't break down on our own. The fermentation of these complex carbohydrates will actually produce molecules called short chain fatty acids, like butyrate, acetate, and propionate. These molecules have beneficial effects not just in the gut, but also in other areas of our body. So they do things like repair our intestinal barrier, reduce systemic inflammation, regulate insulin and blood sugar levels, lower cholesterol, and even support brain function by repairing the blood-brain integrity. When the gut microbiome is imbalanced and less diverse, what we call dysbiosis, the gut wall can actually become irritated. And those tight junctions that we have in place between cells can become irritated and can loosen. And this is a state that's called increased intestinal permeability. Or, you may have heard the term leaky gut, but the actual scientific term for that is increased intestinal permeability. And this can result in inflammation, causing bloating, abdominal pain, food sensitivities, and irregularity in bowel movements. Next, let's switch to the immune system. 70% of our immune system is actually housed within the gut. And it's that single cell of the intestine that separates the microbes from the immune cells. And these immune cells are within the gut-associated lymphoid tissue. Um, so a lot of our there's a lot of interaction between our microbes and the immune system. Healthy immune tolerance depends heavily on microbial signals. So, as we saw in the previous slide, when the gut barrier is damaged, bacterial endotoxins can actually slip through, overactivating the immune system and triggering inflammation. Dysbiosis is strongly associated with allergies, autoimmunity, and chronic low-grade inflammation. Next, we'll talk about hormonal health and endocrine system. There's a community of, in terms of estrogen, which is a big one for women, there's a community of microbes called the estrobolome. And this community actually will regulate how much estrogen stays active in our bloodstream via an enzyme called the beta glucuronidase. When dysbiosis occurs, this enzyme becomes overactive and it recirculates more estrogen into our bloodstream, contributing to symptoms like PMS, bloating, endometriosis, fibroids, and even hormone-sensitive cancers. In PCOS in particular, there have been they have found that there's altered microbiota composition. So you'll have more species of inflammatory microbes like the Clostridium species. And then we've also seen that low diversity of microbes and gut inflammation is linked to insulin resistance and higher testosterone levels. For women, as they approach perimenopause and menopause, this shifts the microbiome because estrogen level drops, and that will cause the microbiome to become less diverse. We've seen this can have impacts for cognition, bone health, metabolism, and fat storage. And then there's also community microbes that'll also affect thyroid levels and cortisol and insulin. So it's all the microbes play a key role even in our hormonal health. Next is metabolism and weight balance. So it's not as simple as calories in, calories out. Our microbes will regulate how efficiently we can extract and store calories. When we have a balanced microbiome, we're producing more short chain fatty acids. So the propionate acetate that we talked about earlier. And they actually have a lot of functions when it comes to our metabolism and our weight. Short chain fatty acids help improve insulin sensitivity, which helps with regulating better blood sugar control, helps drop LDL cholesterol. They increase satiety hormones like leptin, GLP-1, PYY, and then also help it impacts the way we store fat and how much fat we store. So all very important roles when it comes to our metabolism. And next is the brain and mental health, the gut-brain connection. So our gut has its own nervous system, the enteric nervous system. This contains 500 million neurons and produces more than 30 neurotransmitters, including 90% of the body's serotonin. We know that what the gut microbiome is constantly communicating with our central nervous system. There's a back and forth connection there. And that communication takes place through the vagus nerve, neurotransmitters, as well as the short chain fatty acids, which can actually cross the blood-brain barrier. And we also know that when the gut microbiome is disrupted, this communication gets distorted, which contributes to anxiety, depression, ADHD, brain fog, and even neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's dementia. And these mental and neurological issues can further disrupt our microbiome. So it becomes like a vicious cycle that is implicated and something to consider in patients with mental health issues or neurologic issues. Um, and just a point about genetic expression and epigenetics. When the human genome was mapped in early 2000s, we thought that we had the blueprint and we knew what to kind of, we would know how to manage diseases better. But it turns out that only 20% of disease risk is related to genetics. And we can estimate about 80% of our risk is actually modifiable through lifestyle. So yes, we inherit tendencies, but our daily choices matter. And we're seeing that microbes can actually send epigenetic signals that turn genes on and off. So our choices when it comes to nutrition, sleep, stress, movement can shape genetic expression. And this is really empowering, not only for our patients, but also for ourselves. So something to, consider that the microbes are also affecting which genes get turned on and off, which is pretty amazing. And now let's talk about dysbiosis. We did talk a little bit about what that is. It does involve loss of diversity and overgrowth of pro-inflammatory microbes and disrupted short-chain fatty acid production. So you're producing less of these beneficial molecules. And the gut barrier injury. So those tight junctions between that single cell layer breaks down and loosens. And there's lots of conditions that have been linked to dysbiosis. It's an association. We don't know what comes first, but there's definitely a, a common theme here. Whether it's digestive diseases like IBS, IBD, gastroesophageal reflux, or other diseases like type 2 diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, coronary artery disease, hormonal issues like PCOS, endometriosis, hormone-sensitive cancers, mental health diseases, as we talked about, depression, anxiety, ADHD, or neuro diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, um, chronic pain, fatigue, allergies, autoimmune diseases, like all of these different disease processes that are involving different organ systems seems to have dysbiosis as a common theme. And there's, in terms of what can lead to dysbiosis, what can contribute to dysbiosis, in studies, we do see that ultra-processed foods can decrease diversity of our microbes and increase pro-inflammatory microbes, which has been shown in some studies to increase risk of obesity, autoimmune disease, and depression. Um, Diets that are high in saturated fat or animal-based foods and relative to the whole plant foods diversity can also be linked to increased pro-inflammatory microbes, as well as increased metabolites like TMAO, which is associated with increased risk of heart disease. And there's also increased in microbes like one example is Bilophila wadsworthia, which can be increasing our risk for inflammatory bowel disease and colon cancer. We've all been hearing a lot about antibiotic use and PPI use and anti-inflammatory medications. All of these can actually disrupt the gut microbiome as well. I mean, antibiotics make sense because of you're killing off all the good bacteria as well. But even PPIs, they change kind of the acid content in the stomach, which can impact the microbes that are left behind. Anti-inflammatories can impact it as well. And so, I mean, these medications are essential for a lot of people and, in different situations. But we just need to be mindful of their impact on the microbiome and use it judiciously. Next is alcohol. Even a small amount of alcohol has been shown in studies to disrupt the gut lining, as well as increase our risk for cancers, as we know now. So, another one to minimize. Um, and then the final thing is chronic stress, which can increase our cortisol, adrenaline, and increase permeability of the intestinal wall, and decrease diversity in the microbiome as well. So, wanted to talk about lifestyle as medicine, in terms of interventions that have been shown to be beneficial in the research. So, incorporating aspects of our lifestyle to improve our microbiome. So things like diet, exercise, sleep, stress management, spending time in nature, and social connection. So we'll go deeper into these different aspects, so we can learn more about how we can, incorporate this in our patient care. So since we know the importance of the gut microbiome, we also know through studies that our microbiome is actually highly adaptable, and nutrition and lifestyle changes can actually start to change our gut microbiome within 24 hours, with significant shifts happening in the microbial profile and diversity within a week of consistent change, which is quite amazing. Um, so consistently adding things on into our lifestyle that are beneficial will shift our microbiome and shift the microbiome of our patients. So something I came up with to share with patients is the feed, seed, and soothe framework, and it helps us as physicians um, to think of the different aspects of lifestyle that will help. So we want to feed our gut microbiomes the right fuel. We want to seed the gut with beneficial live microbes, and we want to soothe the entire system through lifestyle. So the first one is diet. So we know that our microbes thrive on fiber, resistant starches, and polyphenols. These are the beneficial microbes that will produce more short-chain fatty acids. These compounds are found in plants, and fiber has been shown extensively in large studies to lower inflammation, improve heart health, decrease our risk for heart disease and strokes, and lower cancer risks, especially colon cancer and breast cancer. Only plants contain fiber, and each plant has unique types of fiber. So, different types of soluble, insoluble fibers, resistant starches, which will feed different microbes. Polyphenols are the colorful compounds in plants. And again, based on the colors of the foods that people are eating, there's different polyphenols present in those foods as well. One way of thinking about this is that we are feeding ecosystems of microbes, and this is why diversity in diet is key. The American Gut Project, which was a large study which analyzed over 15,000 stool samples from over 40 countries, found that people who ate more than 30 different plant foods per week had the healthiest, most diverse microbiomes, regardless of whether they were vegan, vegetarian, or omnivores. One of one of the acronyms I find helpful to remember different foods was one I learned from Dr. Will Balsowitz. It's called F goals. So F stands for fruit and fermented foods. Um, so different kinds of fruits and fermented foods, which we'll talk about in the next slide. And then G stands for greens and grains. And you want to, tell patients to prioritize whole grains. O stands for omega-rich nuts and seeds. So chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds. A stands for aromatics. So the allium family of vegetable like onion, garlic, and different herbs and spices falls under this as well. And then L stands for legumes. So, lentils, beans, chickpeas, soybeans, they're all part of this group. And then S stands for sulforaphane family. So these are the, broccoli, cabbage, arugula, really beneficial for decreasing cancer risk as well. And the S also stands for shrooms and sea vegetables. So shrooms are mushrooms, so a variety of mushrooms, great for again, those fibers, but also great for our immune health, cancer prevention as well. And sea vegetables. So it's sea vegetables like seaweed, nori. You can think of that as like greens from the sea, really. And then with protein, we want to try and incorporate more plant proteins because not only are we getting the protein part of it, which we need in our diet, but we're also incorporating fibers and resistant starches and polyphenols, which are present only in plant proteins. The Western diet often overshoots protein while undershooting fiber, and most people are actually fiber deficient, not protein deficient. So we want to be mindful of incorporating fiber through our protein choices as well. And this is just example of kind of what a diverse food would look like. We want to eating some of these will help build the beneficial microbes in our gut microbiome. So there's the lactobacillus species, there's bifidobacterium species, which aid in like digestion, immune modulation. There's also one of the bacteria that's we're seeing a lot of benefit with is Akkermansia muciniphila. This supports the gut barrier health and supports metabolic regulation and weight balance. And then Faecalibacterium prustinizzi. It's a major butyrate producer with strong anti-inflammatory properties. So we're seeing more studies find these microbes. These are just some of the beneficial ones. We're seeing them show up in studies as, important for metabolic and immune health. So next, that was feeding. So we're still in the diet part with seed. Seeding the gut with beneficial microbes through fermented food. So this is, you can think of this as replenishing the ecosystem with microbes through fermented foods. There was a Stanford University study, which it wasn't a large study. It was, I think, 40 patients or so, divided into two groups. And they found that the group eating 6 servings of fermented foods daily, like sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt, miso, tempeh, increased the number and diversity in gut microbes and reduced inflammatory markers like IL-6 in just 10 weeks. So there was more benefit in the high fermented food diet when it came to decreasing these inflammatory markers as compared to high fiber diet, which also had benefits to the microbiome, but there was a greater benefit when it came to decreasing inflammation. So, even telling patients like even a forkful of kimchi or sauerkraut, small bowl of kefir or yogurt, small amounts can make a difference. And we want to make sure that what they're having is actually fermented and it's not just kind of something that's in a jar with vinegar added, because that's not really fermented food. Yeah, again, these foods will help us build lactobacillus species, bifidobacterium species, ruminococcus, akkermansia that we talked about before. So lots of good microbes that'll build over time. And just a point about, probiotics come up a lot, and even prebiotics in our practice. Prebiotics are basically fiber supplements. So things like psyllium husk or wheat dextrin or acacia.
You forgot to give me.
Um, partially hydrolyzed guar gum, like all of these are fiber supplements. There's some good evidence of short chain fatty acid production. It can be helpful to add on, but we always want to think of diet first. We want to encourage people to also build up fiber-rich foods and, plant foods in their diet. In terms of probiotics, there's really very limited indications where there's definite benefit. With probiotic food supplements, sorry. It's not, cases like pouchitis is one that can have benefit from probiotics, but the vast majority, it really is food first, and incorporating those probiotic foods and fermented foods as opposed to adding in probiotic supplements. Because it's real. I don't think we're in the play we're there yet where we know how to really benefit someone's microbiome through a supplement, through a probiotic supplement, because everyone's microbiome is so unique that it almost is like shooting in the dark when you give someone probiotics. Now, if someone's okay with the cost of it, if it makes them feel good, if it's a high enough colony forming units in the probiotic, that's fine. You probably won't do much harm, but many times it's not really needed. And then supplements come up a lot too. Again, it's diet and lifestyle first, but there are supplements that are beneficial, and we all recommend vitamin D. It's required for our bones, required for immune health. So that's one that can help. Omega-3s can be beneficial as well, to shift kind of the microbiome to a more beneficial profile, increase production of short chain fatty acids, reduce gut inflammation. So that's one that people could consider taking. It could be, algae based, or it could be even fish oil based. That's fine. Magnesium supplements are magnesium's a good one for a lot of different reasons. So, magnesium bisglycinate is good for sleep. And sleep and stress management. If someone is on the constipated side, magnesium citrate is a great one to add on, or magnesium sulfate. So magnesium can have benefits when it comes to the gut health in particular. And then the other one we want to think about with is vitamin B12, especially for people on more plant forward diets. But even omnivores can be deficient in B12. So it's one to add on. But again, it's not going to replace the benefits of a healthy diet and lifestyle. And then next is, thinking of the rest of lifestyle through the Soothe framework that I share with people. It incorporates evidence-based lifestyle strategies for a healthier gut microbiome and overall health. So the S stands for sleep and sunlight. The O stands for observe and nourish mindfully. The next O is oxygenate with movement. T is tending to our nervous system. H is human connection and nature, and E is easing into evenings. So let's tackle each of these. So the first one is sleep and circadian health. We know that poor sleep shifts the microbiome towards a more inflammatory metabolic syndrome-like pattern. Restoring our sleep will help support immune function, blood glucose stability, appetite regulation, among many other things. So aiming for good sleep hygiene and 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And, you know, sleep hygiene incorporates a lot of things, of course, but people want to minimize or avoid caffeine for many hours before bed, ideally stopping around noon, so that the caffeine doesn't linger in our bloodstream. Dimming lights closer to bedtime, avoiding screens or alcohol close to bedtime. But one big one is getting morning light. So getting sunlight into our eye, even for 10 minutes at the start of our day helps with melatonin release later in the night. And it's really just a signal for our body as well as our microbes to, to be on that circadian clock. And it helps our microbes also rest and repair. The next one is exercise and movement. So movement of any kind will help our microbes thrive, increase diversity, and increase short-chain fatty acid production. We've seen that in studies. Exercise also increases beneficial gut bacteria. So like specifically they've seen in endurance athletes or marathon runners, there's a microbe called Villanella species. And this species of bacteria will actually help with lactic acid metabolism. So athletes are able to improve their endurance because of this. So exercise can help build microbes of this kind. And we know that diversity of microbes can also, diversity in our movement. So doing different types of activity, of physical activity and movement will help expose us to and build different communities of microbes within our microbiome. Um, and it really does decrease, again, the bacteroides, proteobacteria, which are more inflammatory type microbes, and increase the beneficial ones, as shown at the bottom in the green. So Prevotella, Ruminococcus, Bifidobacterium, Akkermansia, like all of these microbes that are coming up to show to increase short chain fatty acid production, improve digestion, improve many different aspects of our health. We're seeing them go up with exercise, which leads to increased gut barrier integrity, decreased inflammation, and many other downstream benefits. We all know exercise is beneficial, but when it comes to the gut microbiome, we're seeing specific changes that shift the microbiome in the positive direction that we want. The next one to really think about with our patients is stress, trauma, and the gut-brain axis. Stress hormones, when people are under chronic stress, would alter our gut motility, increase intestinal permeability, and alter the microbial composition. Trauma has been associated with chronic dysbiosis as well. And we know that mind-body interventions like meditation, therapy, breath work, or even, spending time in nature have been documented beneficial effects on the microbiome itself. Um, And then social connection and nature. So this is a picture of my dog here, and I have him here because we know that the people and the pets we live with, we're sharing microbes daily. About 100 million microbes are exchanged daily. And we know also that loneliness will actually lower our microbial diversity. So, connecting with people, maintaining regular social connection is really, really important to maintain that diversity and, maintain the beneficial composition of our microbiome. Nature is another one that's been shown to increase diversity in our microbiome. It also boosts our mood, improves natural killer cell activity when time is spent in places with lots of trees or forests even, improves the natural killer cell activity to fight cancer, and even just 20 minutes of time in nature will reduce cortisol levels by up to 25%, which is quite amazing. So lots of benefits for our microbiome and overall health with regular social connection and nature. And then time restricted eating. I just wanted to mention this. It's really kind of nuanced, and there's some promising evidence. There was a study, again, not a very large one, but there are a few in process as well. This one was published in Cell, and it did show that having a 10 to 12-hour feeding window reduced weight, blood pressure, cholesterol levels in patients with metabolic syndrome. So the benefits are likely from circadian alignment, because people are eating during the daytime, they're not kind of extending and eating late at night, which has its own risks for overall health. But this is something that's, I don't know if this is really necessarily related to extreme fasting windows. It's more so tied to aligning the circadian rhythm and being consistent with the eating period, which has its benefits. And I do want to make sure this is not something that people with a history of disordered eating are doing, or people who are really frail, or women who are pregnant or breastfeeding, not really appropriate for them. And it is something that should be individualized. So not something that people want to, again, be doing extreme fasting windows on the regular. But just something worth mentioning here. Now, in terms of, now that we've reviewed kind of all the evidence, and I know that was a lot, we're going to post this webinar on our CCHOHT page. So if anyone wants to reference it, you can. But now that we've covered kind of the evidence-based interventions, what are some practical ways to incorporate this into our routine practice? And why does this even matter, right? In primary care, we do see, and I mean, not just in primary care, just in medicine in general right now, but we're seeing that gut dysbiosis contributes to common conditions, as we spoke about. And we know that evidence-based lifestyle interventions can improve our patients' symptoms, and also their overall health, and reduce their risk for a lot of diseases that they could lead on to with a chronic dysbiosis state. So what can we do when we see patients to sort of incorporate this, what we've learned? So we can kind of start off by asking them, and this may be something, I know, appointments are short, it's hard to fit in all of this, but it could be tackling different aspects in different visits even, or having patient handouts, right? But you want to do a brief screening, asking them about their bowel habits, abdominal pain, any symptoms that they might have from a digestive health standpoint. And you may want to also ask about, just very briefly, what is their diet on the average looking like? How many vegetables or fruits do they eat? How many, are they eating a lot of animal-based foods, but really no vegetables or fruits? Or herbs and spices and beans and lentils? Like, are they not incorporating any of those plant foods? Um, you want to ask about their sleep, their stress levels. Are they moving? Are they getting exercise? Are they lonely? You want to get a sense of what their life looks like. Of course, you want to identify any red flag symptoms, and this may be something they come to us with. But do they have blood in their stool? Do they have any nocturnal symptoms? Are they getting up to use the bathroom and have bowel movements multiple times at night? Are they having a lot of abdominal pain at night? Are they having unexplained weight loss? And we want to review their medications regularly. So PPIs, NSAIDs, antibiotic use, just kind of keeping in mind that these will impact the gut microbiome. And then we want to, give them the tools. So giving them like the feed, seed, soothe framework, emphasizing diversity of plants, fiber-rich meals, hydration, movement, we want to talk about the importance of all these different aspects in their lifestyle. And then we want to act on it. So help them act on this framework, right? So what simple actionable first steps can they take? So can they add one new plant a day, or one or two new plants in a week? Right? It could be really simple. Can they look up a recipe that they think they will enjoy? Um, can they add one fermented food a day? What swaps can they make with their ultra processed foods? And I mean, here's where you could, talk about sleep, movement, social connection as well. Like what can they do something fun outside with a friend, maybe get some time in nature, get some social connection in. It really is based on the patient you have in front of you and what is going to work for them. Motivational interviewing for behavior change is a good one. And recognizing that we don't have all the time that we would want with patients. We want to support them by referring them to community programs, registered dietitian. So the PARX nature prescription program is a great one to get some time in nature, and with our partnership with Conservation Halton, we can give patients these prescriptions so they can get regular time outdoors. The YMCA diabetes prevention program in the Oakville YMCA is a great one. Walk with the Doc, we lead those monthly walks outdoors, which can help with social connection, activity, as well as some evidence-based health information and time in nature. And then there's also community wellness hubs. There's seniors programs like the Hillsview Senior Center in Georgetown and Acton. So there's lots of different programs that you may be aware of wherever you practice. So thinking about that for patients, because again, we see them for such a short window. What can we help them walk away with so they have support when they leave? And so, in our, what I might do is on the CCHOHT page, we might add some of these handouts as well that you could share with your patients when they come in, so they can kind of think about different aspects of the feed, seed, soothe framework, and that way they can incorporate it in their life once they're out of your appointment as well. And we just want to remind patients and ourselves that, small shifts lead to big impacts over time. So we want to focus on consistency and doing one thing consistently for a while and then adding more on. With fiber and fermented foods, we really want to start low with people, especially when people are not used to it. Their GI tract's going to get, they're going to get run into more trouble if we overdo fiber and fermented foods too quickly. So we want to start low and increase slowly. And we want to focus on addition of beneficial foods as opposed to restricting what's not good so much. Like we want to think about food freedom and just focused on nourishment as opposed to restriction. And always progress over perfection, reminding our patients, reminding ourselves of that, right? And yeah, I just wanted to end off by some key takeaways. The gut microbiome is foundational to our digestive, immune, hormonal, metabolic, and mental and brain health. And dysbiosis is associated with chronic diseases that we've talked about. Evidence does support plant diversity, fiber, fermented foods, and lifestyle interventions. And incorporating microbiome care in patient interaction is something we should all think about. Yeah. And I just thought this picture was kind of funny, where the brain is asking the heart, "Who told you to do that?" The heart's like, "He did," and pointed to the gut, and the gut says, "But I'm always right," and that's the gut feeling. And I just want to end off with that. Thank you, everyone. And we're open for questions. Sarah will also, she's already put in um, the evaluation in the chat box. So if you could also fill in the evaluation, that would be really great.
Navy, I just wanted to comment that I put some information about getting
Mhm.
the CME credit in the chat, but for some reason I lost access to the chat, so I have a funny sentence that just ends in
Oh,
is. It's
okay.
so people aren't trying to find the rest of it. It's the information that I needed to put is there. So
Yeah.
need to they can actually access the credit by going into their main pro and putting the program ID in. But if you want proof of that CME credit that you have to keep on file, you'll need to email Ashley, who's our admin at the Halton Physician Association. So I just left her email there.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris.
An excellent talk. I learned a lot. Lunchtime is a perfect time for that. We can all look at what we're eating. I don't have 30 plants in mind, but maybe a few.
You know what, 30 like seems like a lot, but over the week that really it can easily add up. Like it's vegetables, fruits, it's whole grains, it's beans, lentils, spices, herbs, like nuts and seeds, like they all count towards those plants. So we're all getting more than we think we are.
And probably people have to go to their office, and I'm going to slip in a question as I'm sure some will be dropping off. But any evidence in terms of what can help shift worker? And then my other question was alcohol and its effect on the gut. Probably not two small issues, but.
Well, no, those are great questions. In terms of shift workers, I mean, yes, the sleep is off, and it's the circadian. We're not kind of following that circadian rhythm, but what can really help is trying to minimize overnight eating. So if possible, eating before by 10 p.m. or so, and not eating overnight. Water is fine. That helps kind of give the gut a rest. And having consistency, because if you can't, how much ever consistency you can have, right? So having a routine once that shift is done is helpful. And trying to stay, being sedentary along with shift work is more of an issue. So doing whatever is possible, right? Doing the other beneficial things that are possible to incorporate would be a good strategy for shift work. And then in terms of alcohol, it has been shown, so again, it's been shown to increase those pro-inflammatory microbes and decrease the beneficial ones, which can then impact the short chain fatty acid production. And it has been shown to disrupt the gut, the intestinal barrier. So you'll get more of that increased intestinal permeability, which can then have impacts on inflammation, immune health issues. Um, of course, digestive health issues. People do tend to have issues with their bowel movements and things with alcohol. Um, so there are lots of downstream issues that can happen.
Thanks
Yeah.
for
Along with, of course, cancer risk, right? That's another one. Um, Colon,
that.
esophageal. Yeah.
Yeah, and you
Mm.
wonder about that interaction. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's two questions in the
In the
chat.
chat. Yeah. So Chanchol is asking, any benefit of soy over lactose? Current trend is shifting away from lactose. I mean, do you mean soy milk or just
The soya
soy?
milk. That's
Soy milk,
correct.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, soy milk, the benefit with soy milk is again, you're incorporating soybeans, which have a lot of benefits, right? In terms of there's fiber in soybeans. Soy milk probably has less because you're filtering away the fiber. But again, it's like plant protein. Soy milk has been shown, along with whole soy foods, to reduce risk of hormonal cancers, actually. So because soy actually has it's actually a phytoestrogen that is weaker than our own estrogen. So it actually helps with blocking off those hormone receptors. So it actually reduces the risk of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, in men, prostate cancer. Biggest benefit actually is when girls, like adolescent girls, have more soy foods. So you want to obviously prefer more whole soy foods. Um, it's not that lactose is bad on its own. There's nothing like it's really about, like, can you have more of the thing that's more beneficial versus less beneficial, right? So that's really it with soy. But whole soy
Okay, thank
foods
you.
like tempeh or edamame is even more beneficial. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then I think there's which ID to put in search for CME.
Yeah, and I
Is
just,
that the one? Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
put that.
you just added it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully that
Okay.
works. Sometimes the ID numbers, I know from my own experience, don't always pop up the session, so it should work if you put in the name of it.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions before we end? Okay. I think not, but we will have this webinar posted on our CCHOHT webpage. I'll share it on the Halton physician chat group as well. We can send an email about it, and I'll put in some handouts as well that you could, that could be beneficial for yourself as well as for patients, because it is hard to go over all of this in our patient interactions. So, maybe making them leave with something could be an idea.
Amazing talk, Nivi. Thanks very much.
Thank you all.
And we've got another one in 2 months, right? We don't have
Yeah.
the date yet.
We don't have the date yet, but we will send it out soon. Yeah. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a lovely day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.